Shalom, everyone, to Living with the Times. This week's portion of the Torah is Vayechi, and it begins by saying that Yaakov lived for 17 years in Egypt, and the length of his days was 147 years. And then most of the Torah portion deals with the death of Yaakov. At the end of the Torah portion, Yaakov passes away. He's brought to Hebron for burial. And then at the end of the portion, Yosef also is preparing to die, and he gives over his last will and testament to his brothers and his children that he also wants to be brought back to Israel for burial. And so both Yaakov and Yosef pass away outside of Israel. Yaakov is brought back to Israel for burial, and Yosef gives his greatest desire that when the Jews will come out of Egypt, that they take his bones with him, which is exactly what happened. As we were getting ready to leave Egypt, Moshe finds the bones of Yosef and brings them back. And Moshe did not make it into the land, but others took the bones, and he was buried near Shechem. So here the parsha is called Vayechi, and he lived, and yet it's mostly about the death of Yaakov and the death of Yosef. So here we see something very, very interesting. For so many years that the Jewish people were in exile, the most that a person could dream about was being buried in Israel. For so much of Jewish history, the dream of coming back to Israel, we pray for it every single day during all those thousands of years. But for most people, even being buried in Israel was a dream that could not be realized. But today, we can live in Israel. We can visit Israel. Anyone could get on a plane and come for a week or a month or a year, or to live here. And so here we see a juxtaposition of the parsha being called "and he lived," and yet it's all about their deaths. But both of them wanted to be buried in Israel. So we're told that the place that the Jews lived in Egypt was called Goshen. And I learned from Rav Yitzhak Ginsburg that the three letters for Goshen stand for three letters of spiritual longing. The Gimel is Ga'aguim, the Shin is Sha'ashuim, and the Nun is Na'anuim. Each one of these is a very subtle difference, but they all express spiritual longing. And so we're told that when they were in Goshen, they lived, they multiplied, they became a great people within Egypt. And yet there was always a spiritual longing because they realized they weren't in Israel. And so even though during the many years of exile, it's true we were oppressed, and there was all kinds of expulsions and inquisitions and pogroms and crusades and Holocaust. Nonetheless, we did manage to thrive in between all of that. And so even when we were in exile, we never lost the spiritual longing to return to Israel. Not just to be buried there, but to actually live there. It was included in all of our prayers, in so many of our rituals, and we made it. We're here. Everyone can actually get buried here. So many people die outside of Israel, and they're brought here for burial. But now we have the time to live in Israel. The Baal Shem Tov taught a great teaching, and he said one of the secrets of redemption is that when we come back to Israel, that we maintain the same longing for being in the land of Israel as we had when we were outside. And the Baal Shem Tov lived outside of Israel. He made a great attempt to make it here, and he almost did, but he didn't quite make it here. But his teaching was so applicable to now, and I'd say especially now, where we are involved in a war that we consider is a war of what's called no choice. That if we're going to exist here in this land, unfortunately, right now, we have to fight for it. But the Baal Shem was trying to teach us that the longing for the land has to be there even while we're here. And so many people feel it now. So many people that we come to take it for granted, even those who live here. But it's such a privilege, such an honor to be in the Holy Land. And so in the Gemara, there's a very interesting discussion among the sages. And one of the sages said, Yaakov lo met. Yaakov did not die. So another sage said, what do you mean? Look in Parshat Vayechi. It says he died. He was embalmed. They brought him up to Hebron. He was buried. What do you mean Yaakov lo met? So the reply was, are his children still alive? If his children are still alive, Yaakov lo met. Yaakov didn't die. And so here we are, 2023, 5784, and we are in Israel. And every Jew, every non-Jew has the possibility of coming to the Holy Land. And so I'll just end with the phrase that comes from the previous Parsha, that when Yosef reveals himself to his brothers, he says, is our father still alive? And when Yaakov hears that Yosef is alive, it's Yosef is still alive? And from this, Rabbi Shlomo Carlebach came up with we'll call it the anthem of Am Yisrael Chai. Od Avinu Chai. Yaakov lo met. Yaakov didn't die. Od Avinu Chai. So let's hold on to this idea to understand the great merit we have to be another link in the chain that goes all the way back to Avram, Yitzhak, Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel, and Leah. And we should all hold on, especially in this Torah portion of Vayechi, Am Yisrael Chai.